pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Irby? Here. Councilmember Page?
Here.
Councilmember Fitch?
Here.
Councilmember Gray?
Present.
Councilmember Clancy? Here. Councilmember Tracus?
Present.
Councilmember Harder?
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
We have no, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I move for approval of the journal of the meeting of March 5th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Journals approved. We have no bid openings this evening, so we'll move to communications.
Mr. Chair, we have no tax compromises this evening, so we'll move to zoning matters. Under zoning matters, item number 1, 3rd District.
Receive and file.
So ordered.
Item number 2, 6th District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation, please.
So ordered.
Item number 3, 6th District.
Receive and file.
So ordered.
Mr. Chair, we have nothing under road and bridge matters, so we'll move to other communications. Under other communications, item number 1, all districts.
Receive, file, and this will be referred to the Ethics Committee for a future date. So ordered.
Item number 2, 4th District.
Receive and file.
So ordered.
Item number 3.
Receive, file, and the appropriations transfer be approved as requested.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 4, 3rd District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation.
So ordered.
Item number 5, 7th District.
Second. Two more. Yeah. Receive and file.
So ordered.
Item number 6, 3rd District.
Receive, file, and refer to the Public Improvements Committee.
So ordered.
Item number 7.
Receive and file, and that will be the order.
Item number 8, 2nd District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation. That will be the order.
Item number 9.
Receive and file, and that will be the order.
Item number 10.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation. It's a motion for item number 11, and that will be the order.
Item number 12, 7th District.
Receive, file, and the county councilor be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation.
So ordered.
Item number 13, 1st District.
Receive, file, and the county council be directed to prepare the appropriate legislation, and a copy of this report be sent to the city of Wellston.
So ordered. Please read the add-on.
On the add-on agenda, Mr. Chair, under other communications, item number 1, 3rd District.
Please hold on the order of business.
So ordered.
Item number 2, 2nd District.
Receive and file, and that will be the order. Report of the county executive. No report. Ethics Committee.
Please hold on the order of business.
So ordered. Public forum.
We have 30 speakers this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Please approach the podium when your name is called. Adjust the microphone so we can capture your remarks for the record. Please give us your name and address, and try and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
First speaker this evening is Jeff Barone.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Jeff Maroni. I reside at 17360 Countryside Manor Parkway in Chesterfield in Council District 7 of St. Louis County. In addition to being a St. Louis County resident, my lodging and investment and management firm, Lennox Capital Partners, is a St. Louis County business based in Clayton in Council District 5. Prior to starting my own firm, I have worked my entire career in the lodging industry, based here over the course of the last 28 years. My firm is the asset manager for the owner of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel St. Louis, located just a few blocks from here. You might not think that a hotel in Clayton would benefit from America Center in downtown St. Louis, but in fact we do benefit. Large association and corporate meetings at America Center often have groups of attendees that will seek out a room block at a property like ours for the quality of product that we provide. Such guests don't mind the short ride to attend events downtown, but most often, we and all county hotels benefit from the compression or ripple effect of excess downtown demand out to the county. When large convention groups and events fill up the downtown hotels, more transient corporate and leisure customers reserve hotel rooms in the county. In this manner, America Center helps to increase occupancy and average rates in hotels in the county. The busier our hotels are, the more taxes we generate for the benefit of the region. The hotels in our region who generate and collect occupancy taxes from out-of-town guests want those taxes to continue to be used to keep America Center competitive. The convention center facility is a regional asset. When this lodging tax was introduced many years ago, we supported it because this tax revenue was used to expand the convention facilities back then. And now we're asking you to authorize new bonds from that tax to keep the revenue flowing into our region. The success of county hotels is dependent on the success of the region, and by approving this expansion, you will be supporting our success. Almost 75% of our hotel employees live in St. Louis County. We spend almost $1.5 million annually to just 5 of our top local vendors who operate businesses in St. Louis County. It's our citizens and companies in St. Louis County who benefit from this tax while our hotel guests pay for it. Let's continue to use the tax for regional growth in the manner it was originally conceived. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Bob O'Loughlin.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I'm Bob Lachlan. I reside at 234 Sugar Creek Ridge in Kirkwood. I'm chairman and CEO of Lodging and Hospitality Management. We own 20 hotels in St. Louis. We own Westport Plaza. We have 5,000 hotel rooms, and we're currently developing downtown Union Station with the aquarium and the Ferris wheel. As Jeff just said, lodging is tied to conventions and tourism, and we provide about 35% of all of the hotel tax that's contributed to the tourism and convention effort in the St. Louis area. And the convention center expansion hasn't been expanded in a long time. We feel the competitiveness with Nashville, Indianapolis is not up to snuff. This is an important project, and by refinancing the bonds through the hotel motel tax, we think it'll generate a tremendous amount, in fact, billions of dollars of revenue, which will generate it in taxes and employment. As I said, we employ 3,000 people, all in the hospitality business, and we've been able, through the help of the Convention and Visitors Commission, to expand Westport Plaza, which was much needed. We took it over with 72% occupancy. It's now 98% occupancy. And we expect to draw about 1.5 million to 2 million people a year to Union Station with one of the most spectacular aquariums in the Midwest. So we would ask you and would appreciate if this can be approved so these bonds can be refinanced and support a great industry to our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Next speaker is Greg Twardowski.
Good evening. My name is Greg Twardowski. I reside at number 4 Portland Drive in Frontenac, Missouri. I'm President and Chief Executive Officer of Wayland Security. Although I'm sure many of you might be familiar with our organization, Wayland is one of the largest contract security and event services organizations in the country, and our headquarters and St. Louis Regional Support Center is located in St. Louis County. We employ approximately 12,000 employees throughout the U.S., 1,500 of which are in St. Louis. The majority of those employees live in the county. I'm here to speak in support of America Center, obviously, and I'm speaking not only on behalf of Wayland Security, but also on behalf of Roger Spearman and A1 Private Investigations, a minority-owned business enterprise and my subcontracting partner at America Center. Roger wanted to attend this evening, but serves on the national board of the Airport Minority Advisory Council and had a commitment in Washington, D.C. Regardless, like Wayland, A1 is also headquartered in St. Louis County. In 2018, my firm had 225 employees work at America Center, providing approximately 61,800 hours of service. Of those hours, approximately 23,000 were directly related to event work, and the event staffing obviously varies by event. During the normal course of business at America's Center, we assign only 15 to 20 event personnel to work special events. For larger shows and conventions, staffing increases to more than 50 event personnel, and for the large seated events, specifically in the Dome, staffing increases to more than 150 personnel. Of possible interest of the employees we have assigned to the center, approximately 68% are minority, 51% are female, and of real interest, 26% of the employees assigned to America's Center by my firm are residents of St. Louis County. Of additional interest, I would argue that many, but certainly not all, of my employees come from some form of socioeconomically disadvantaged background. From our perspective, without commenting on the importance of America's Center as an incredibly important economic asset of the broader St. Louis region, improvements to America's Center will result in more jobs and greater opportunities for my employees, again, many of whom are residents of St. Louis County and many of whom come from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds. Those employees who are dependent upon these opportunities and jobs and their income are appreciative of your support. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next speaker is Ray Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ray Wagner. I'm the Senior Vice President at Enterprise Holdings, located at 600 Corporate Park Drive here in Clayton. Enterprise and the Taylor family are proud to call St. Louis home, and they continue to invest in not only the community they so dearly love, but in the community they so dearly love as well, the St. Louis community. This is the community that has seen Enterprise begin as a small startup with 1 employee and 7 vehicles to an industry leader and innovator with more than 2 million cars worldwide and employing more than 100,000 families across the globe. The Taylor family and the company are committed to this great city and region that has been so good to us over the years. We are therefore very pleased to be here tonight to support the Convention and Visitor Commission in its support for Bill number 73 introduced by Councilwoman Irby. The St. Louis region, like our company, has competitors. The region competes for employers to stay here and to come here for the jobs they provide to the community. The region competes for sports teams. In fact, some of you may have heard about the Major League Soccer franchise that is being talked about across the country. And the region competes for travelers to come to our town either for business or pleasure or both. And just like we do every day at Enterprise, where we work daily to outperform our competitors, our region needs to work every day to outperform cities such as Nashville, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Louisville, Cincinnati, and many others. That's why it's so critical to pass County Bill number 73 and to join the city in authorizing an additional $6 million per year in bonds to finance the much-needed expansion of the Convention Center. America's Center is the facility for the St. Louis region for its national conventions and business events. It's 42 years old and needs a major upgrade for St. Louis to compete. The bonds would continue to be paid off by the hotel tax in the county. At Enterprise, many of our employees participate in conventions across the county, our country, and across the globe. There are regions, many of which I just mentioned, out there that are simply way ahead of us in terms of having the facilities to land the large conventions and bring tourists and their dollars to St. Louis. Supporting Bill number 73 will help the CVC build upon the tremendous track record of bringing big conventions to St. Louis, filling up our hotel rooms, which you heard about this afternoon or this evening, eating at our amazing restaurants, and maybe even rent a car. The bottom line, these conventions help to make our local economy grow, so this investment is our investment. Again, on behalf of Enterprise and the Taylor family, it's a privilege to be here to voice our support for Bill number 73, and I hope the council supports it as well. I'd also be remiss if I left this chamber without acknowledging the men and women of the St. Louis County Police Department who are here behind me tonight, and a former chief. I had the honor of serving on the Board of Police Commissioners, and it's a pleasure to be here and always give them a shout out and urge your full support for all of their activities and all of the funding that they need to do their jobs. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Al Gerber.
Hello, I'm Al Gerber, 13482 Mason Village Court in Town and Country. I have been a member of the Deer Task Force in Town and Country, and I'm here to talk about the issue of hunting deer in our parks. Now, many cities think that the best way to control deer is to let people bow hunt in parks. Town and Country thought about this, and we have rejected this method. Two problems with it: it doesn't really work that well. You can't get enough of them to stabilize the population, and it can be very cruel. If the hunter doesn't kill the first time, the deer can bleed to death slowly, or it can die of sepsis many weeks later. Town and Country has tried a couple methods that have been effective. To lower the population quickly, they used baiting and sharpshooting. And then to keep the population down, they have tried darting and sterilization. And that sterilization is ovarectomies, taking the ovaries out. At first, Town and Country did both, and for several years they didn't have to spend that much money on the shooting. But then after a while they stopped doing any sterilizing, and the population came back pretty fast. And since then it's been going up and down, and they've had to kill quite a few every year to keep it down. In fact, in the last 10 years they've spent almost $1 million. Now here's why they stopped sterilizing. Shooting costs, with a professional, shooting costs about $350 a deer to shoot and dispose of the meat. Ovarectomy costs about $1,100. This was a few years ago, but I think the ratio is about the same. It's about 3 times as much to do an ovarectomy. So people said, oh, that's too expensive. We can't do that. But think about it this way. If you already have the population down where you want it, and you want to decide, should I invest in sterilizing this deer, it costs you $1,100. But that deer could have 10, 15 fawns the rest of its life. Say 10. That's $3,500 it would cost. So, okay, you invest $1,100 now in sterilizing, and you save $3,500 that you don't have to kill in the future. So the arithmetic isn't always so clear in how, what is really cheaper. Just so my advice to the council is, don't jump into this too quickly. Consult the experts, and don't think you can just kill your way out of this problem. Thanks a lot.
Next speaker is Barbara Hughes.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Ann Hughes. I live at 101 Hawthorne Estates, Town and Country 63131. I'm also here this evening with Mr. Gerber in regards to deer management. As a former alderman in Town and Country and co-chair of the city's deer task force, I would like to provide you with a viable alternative of deer management. Surgical sterilization, what he was just referencing, has been used by the City of Town and Country's contractor, White Buffalo, and in Bethesda, Maryland, Fairfax County, Virginia, Cornell University, Staten Island, New York, and Loch Raven, Maryland. The goal of sterilization is to reduce the population and stabilize population growth. And as I referenced earlier, the same method of sterilization was used in Town and Country to do, as he referenced, 125 does. Deer sterilization is a proven acceptable alternative. A binder of information was provided to our representative on the council, Councilman Fitch. This has to do with Clifton deer. I have a whole binder of information on them. I also put in information about the Botsteiber Institute for Wildlife and Fertility Control. I went to one of their national conferences. And also I put in a copy of the deer management proposal that the task force developed, and the copy is in there as well. If there's anything that I can do to help you with deer management, when I was first an alderman, that's been about 15, 16 years ago, I dealt with the deer issue back then. So I've been doing it all the way along. I'd be happy to help you in any way, shape, or form, or put you in touch with some of the contacts that I know on the national level. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jonathan Brooks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Brooks. I stay at 2577 North Waterford in Florissant, Missouri. I'm here today to express my feelings about Explore St. Louis and the help we need from you guys to support this legislation for the funding and bonds for the... I'm a maintenance personnel at Explore St. Louis, so I see the backside of it and the outside of the public and the inner workings of the inside the buildings, the upgrades that we need. And this funding will help us a lot to just improve so we can grow as a whole city, to expand more and get bigger organizations to come to our city. I would like it if you guys all would vote yes on this bill to pass. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Matthew Dewey.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Dewey, and I am a resident of St. Louis County in Council District Number 2. I reside at 1905 Kings Road Manor, and I've lived there for over 20 years. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak this evening. As a resident of St. Louis County and as an employee of Explore St. Louis, I support the Convention Center expansion. In my role as Senior Vice President and General Manager of America Center, I see every day how the Convention Center is an economic engine for our region. We create jobs. From full-time to part-time, we create jobs. Part-time jobs range from building services, security, guest service, housekeeping, and food and beverage. We also support jobs, from small projects to large projects, to supplies and materials, to repairs and maintenance. We support St. Louis County businesses and workers. We find all the time that clients, guests, and attendees venture out into the community. St. Louis County is St. Louis, and they want to experience all that we have to offer. We also find and hear from clients, guests, and attendees that it's time to grow. We need more space. The deadline to expand is well overdue, and the time is now. This isn't a project we would like to do. This is a project we must do. As a St. Louis County resident of Council District 2, I support this project, and I ask you to join me in support of the expansion of the Convention Center. It's good for St. Louis, it's good for St. Louis County, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jeff Sachs.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Thanks for having me. I'm here representing Merit's Global Events. My name is Jeff Sachs, and we are headquartered at 1395 North Highway Drive in Fenton, Missouri. Many of you might not know what Merit's Global Events represents, and we own two subsidiary companies, Merit's Travel and Experience. We represent one of the largest travel and meeting management companies in the United States. We have 1,600 associates, about 60% of those that live here in St. Louis. We produce and execute 8,400 or more events on an annual basis. We book 4.6 million room nights annually, and that represents about $1.2 billion in room revenue. I'm here speaking on behalf of the America Center expansion from the client perspective. On an annual basis, we assist nearly 700 or more national associations and corporations in the search to find a location for their meetings, conventions, and trade shows. I wouldn't be surprised if lots of you in the room have attended a trade show, meeting, or convention that we've actually booked. International Association of Chiefs of Police comes to mind. The gentlemen that have spoken ahead of me spoke of the competition factor in this conversation, and it's real. Every day we are sourcing destinations around the country, St. Louis included, that are moving much faster than we are moving as it relates to convention center readiness. We list and look for business for St. Louis on a regular basis, and far too often St. Louis's convention center just doesn't meet the criteria of these clients of ours that need the space, and we're losing that business to Nashville, Indianapolis, Louisville, Cleveland, San Antonio, Houston, Minneapolis, and that's just in the Midwestern competitive set. This convention center is a beautiful place, but it needs to be much better. It's not large enough, and it's not modern enough to get most of the business that we represent. So our company is very passionate about it and would ask for your support as you think about the future renovations and expansion of the America Center. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Tiffany Pike.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tiffany Pike, and I am a non-commissioned employee with the St. Louis County Police Department. If you're not already aware, our professional staff in the police department has formed a collective bargaining unit and is currently in negotiations. I've heard numerous times that funding for our pay plan, something that our commissioned officers have already received as promised from Prop P, may not be available for the rest of our department. When Prop P was being advertised, professional staff were told that we would be included in the use of these funds to implement a pay matrix. In June of 2017, after Prop P was passed, the county executive announced a much-needed pay increase for our patrol officers and stated, I quote, "For those who are not patrol officers, there will be announcements in the very near future relating to raises as well." After months of waiting, the police professional staff received no raises. In November of 2017, during an interview with the McGraw Show, the county executive mentions that the officer and civilian raises were approved. After questioning numerous individuals about this, I learned there was no proposed raise for police professional staff. Every request for a raise for us was repeatedly denied. Then, after weeks of the police professional staff speaking at council meetings and with members of our department and county council, we were able to get a 7% increase across the board for professional staff. This was a huge victory for us, as originally we were set to receive no raise in the budget, even though we were promised we would be included in the use of Prop P funds. However, compression was not only a problem with our police officers, but also our professional staff, and it was not addressed. Years of no raises left the new employee and a vested employee making the same pay. The pay matrix fixed this problem for our officers, and we were under the impression that we would receive a pay matrix as well. We started negotiating in the fall of 2018 after months of preparation, only to repeatedly see the council appropriate Prop P funds for other departments and now have to worry that funds won't be available to the police department as originally promised. Knowing that the public voted to pass Prop P for law enforcement and intentionally appropriating these funds elsewhere is not only a disservice to the voters and law enforcement, but reinforces the lack of trust constituents have in their elected officials. Whether the language is vague or not, as elected officials, you have the ability to take advantage of your voters that pass this proposition or to do the right thing and represent your constituents and their wishes. You were voted by them to represent them. Please use Proposition P funding as it was initially promised to provide raises to all of the police department, not just the officers, add 2-man cars, provide body cameras to our officers, and additional training. Once all of these promises are met, then consider using additional funds for other public safety needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Next speaker is Robert Piniella. Robert Piniella.
Thank you. I'm Robert Pinnell. I live at 1298 Penn Run Drive. That's unincorporated St. Louis. And I'm a business attorney, practice here in town. I recently spoke with a older woman that had listened to her hairdresser and got legal advice. And she added her children's names and her grandchildren's, her minor grandchildren's name to her home deed. And now she was wanting to know how to undo that because her husband has, well, I think it was cancer, but in any event, has a health issue, and they wanted a reverse mortgage to be able to get money to be able to pay for that treatment.
that is a major problem and is not going to be easily solved. But basically, this is the kind of situation that I hear routinely. And I can tell you that it is very troublesome because there's oftentimes very little that can be done. But fortunately, older residents in St. Louis County for 40 years now, those of limited means, have had a program that has the county has provided to provide legal advice for these individuals at no cost. Now, it's very limited. It's simply wills, durable powers of attorney, beneficiary deeds. That's incidentally exactly what that woman should have used instead of what she did. These are tools that will ensure that our older residents of limited means are able to properly plan for their future needs and the future disposition of their assets, free from the latest and greatest produce department legal advice. No doubt you're wondering, good heavens, how much is this going to cost taxpayers paying for all this legal advice? Well, I'm happy to tell you, not a dime. The way this is set up, there are attorneys that provide this service absolutely free, and there's been about 30 of them over the past 5 years, and there's almost an equal number of other volunteers which have done other aspects of it. But the bottom line is that this is a very cost-effective program. The only cost is a part-time individual for the administrative support. I can tell you that Joan Horn has run this program for the past 10 years, and she has done an excellent job. But now that she's retiring, we're being told that the program is basically going to be shuttered. I can appreciate the wish to save money. I'm very in favor of being fiscally responsible, but I find it hard to believe there are very many programs that offer the same bang for the buck that this program does. And I would encourage the council to take steps to provide appropriate funding for it to keep it in play. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Rob.
Next speaker is Dolphus Pruitt.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Dolphus Pruitt, 4811 Delmore, St. Louis NAACP. I rise because we have heard some concerns about funding for the MWE program that was approved under Bill 350. Well, I know we have two new members of the council that were not here to vote for it, but the council made a considerable amount of promise to make sure that that bill was implemented to its fullest. The program received all of the funding it was due, and that is spelled out within the ordinance explicitly. And so when we hear about the fact that there may be some issues with funding for the program to go forward, that raises some real concern for us. And I refuse to believe that is at the hands of the council, because we really do appreciate your support and the work we did to put in to get that bill done. But we will hope that you would be as vigorous to protect it and protect the issues surrounding it, especially as relates to funding. With respect to Bill 73, I'm also not sure. I see it's up for perfection. I have some concerns about it. At the end of the day, this same Bill 350 also ensured us that it's the goals and the things that was not outlined within it would always follow county's monies and county expenditures. And I'm not certain that what I've seen so far, that Bill 73 not only protects those things that would approve by you guys under Bill 350, but in addition, I don't know if matter of fact, I don't know if it provides any protections to make sure that it's okay. And then one other thing that was still curious, the director testified a couple of weeks ago that there was some services donated to help design and all of these other things for the expansion. We asked for it, and we were told that it really doesn't exist. So, and the reason why we look for that stuff is, the best example I can give you is that if you ask me to design you a house for free and I do it, and then you turn around and put it out for bid, I'm going to bid on it, other architects are going to bid on it, but I've designed it and they got to bid on something I've done some work on. Those sort of things run kind of funny when it comes to procurement processes. We want to know who, if anybody, has donated any services relating to any professional services, architectural, contracted, anything that relates to the expansion. They donated those services or somebody else paid for it. We want to know who they are. And we don't understand why there's a big secret about it. And then the last thing is that we asked about the employment side, and let's be clear. There is executive level that runs the convention center, and it's made up of people who hold directorships and things of that nature. We simply asked for who they are, we asked for what race, gender, and how much money they made, so we can look at some comparison. They refused to give us that information. We have to have some transparency in this, and again, we need to make sure that the issues in Bill 350 are embedded in Bill 73.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Thomas Nellums.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Nellums. I'm the owner of T&E Trucking, one of the largest minority firms in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County. But there is a lot of concern because I also sit on the board of MOCAN as the chairman. We've been coming out here meeting for a little while trying to get diversity. We finally got St. Louis County to look into it, and they found out that we was underutilized. So it was a bill put in place so that we could work. And it just step back a minute and listen to this. This big new building next door, your county building, was built with no minority participation at all for us companies. They only had 2 or 3 boots on the ground, which is people that work. I live in St. Louis County. Half of my employees live in St. Louis County. I pay a large sum of taxes to St. Louis County, but I can't get work out of St. Louis County. We don't know nothing about the jobs until they start. They built a brand new Walmart in the area that I live in with no minority construction workers. Here it is, you're saying that you're building up Ferguson and you're going to do better. Ferguson is being built without minority companies. Even the buildings that was burned was torn down. But with this bill in place, and when we seen Jack Thomas was coming back and got a job, and then we seen Fran Wiggum, we were sure that you were serious. But now all of a sudden the funds are going to be cut. That means that the minorities are going to be cut. And I think it's unfair. You want my taxes? I can't live or run my business without paying my taxes. And I pay a large sum of taxes. Been doing it for over 33 years. So all we asking you all to do is look at it and be fair. And don't tell us you're going to do it and don't do it. And you hire good people to do the job. And then you turn around and say that the funds are cut. That's not right. All we ask you to do is be fair, look at it. We don't want welfare. We just want our fair share. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Lucy Bloomstrom.
Hello, my name is Lucy Bloomstrand. I reside at 22 Berkshire Drive in Richmond Heights, and I'm a senior at John Burroughs School. I've been playing golf since I was 5 years old, and I recently captained my high school team to win a state championship in the fall. I'm a 2.9 handicap, if that means anything to anyone, and I'll be playing college golf for the reigning Division III national champions next year. When I look back on my childhood, nothing quite stands out as much as days spent at Tower T. From CYC matches and Gateway Junior PGA tournaments to afternoons spent on the range with my family, Tower T serves as the backdrop for some of my fondest childhood memories. When I heard this facility was going to be destroyed, I was deeply upset. But my reasoning for preserving this iconic St. Louis landmark extends beyond my own personal sentiments. I have been lucky enough to play golf and take lessons from some incredible PGA professionals in and beyond St. Louis. But I know that in a city as poverty-stricken as ours, many kids don't have the same luck as I. Because of its convenient location in South St. Louis County and its low cost, Tower T is the perfect venue for families from all backgrounds all over the city to come together around golf. I really believe that golf is one of the best activities for kids of all ages. It's a game you can play for your entire life, gets kids active and outdoors, and teaches honor and respect above all else. There are so many opportunities to be had by young golfers, like scholarships, and taking away a place that serves as a jumping off point for so many young golfers would, in my eyes, be a grave mistake. So many of my peers who I spent my summers with can attest to the fact that Tower Tee had a greatly positive impact on their lives growing up as a kid in St. Louis. Tower Tee has been a staple in St. Louis for generations, and the thousands of residents the facility has touched will all be deeply upset by its removal. The positive effects of golf and sports on young lives is unparalleled, and I would not be where I am today without places like Tower Tee at my disposal. Thank you for your time, and I hope you will consider saving this great place.
Mr. Chair, can we ask the speaker to spell her last name for us?
Can you spell your last name for us?
Bloomstrom, Bloomstran.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next speaker is Melissa Webb.
Chairman Page, members of the council, thank you very much for your time and your service to our community. My name is Melissa Webb. I am a captain with the St. Louis County Police Department. And I'm here this evening to address you with regards to Bill number 76. This bill, as it's written, will appropriate $750,000 from the Prop P fund from the police department, and would subsequently be transferred to the Parks Department, the Highways Department, and the County Councilor's Office. While we truly value and appreciate all of the hard work that each of those departments do each and every day, I speak on behalf of the women and the men of the St. Louis County Police Department and saying that we owe it to the voters who overwhelmingly approved the measure to advocate that Prop P funds are spent in the manner that the voters have intended, and that is for the police and public safety. The voters believed when they approved this measure, it was for their safety, their security, all relating directly to law enforcement. The measure was proposed in that manner, and I believe that that is why it passed with such a remarkable mandate. I would ask that you carefully consider this bill. You keep in mind while doing so the purpose of this important initiative and support the will of the voters to interpret this fund and your responsibility to appropriate from that from the perspective of the voters who approved it. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms.
Next speaker is Marvin Steele.
Good evening, Human Chairman. My name is Marvin Steele, and I am the board chairman of the St. Louis Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. And I am here in support of maintaining the Office of Diversity within the chairman's office. I want to say this. I really respect our NAACP head, Mr. Pruitt, and certainly Mr. Neal, who is a great businessman in St. Louis, who talked about the need for African Americans in particular to be able to work in this county and have jobs. You know, I can go back 35 years ago when there were not many African Americans in St. Louis County. We have now reached a critical mass, and we need to be dealt with in terms of our taxes, in terms of our effort, in terms of our contributions. I also want to say this, though. I've known Jack Thomas, who heads that office, for probably 30 years. I think he's extraordinary. I think his work in St. Louis has been extraordinary. He helped many of us contractors and business people to grow. He deserves that position. I'm glad he's there. But I also want to say that sometimes I think in St. Louis, we don't quite get the fact that it's not just about minority participation. It's about the growth of this region. When several people spoke of Nashville and other cities, Louisville, Houston, that have grown exponentially in the last 20 or 30 years, what's common to all of them is they embrace diversity. And until we do that, we'll never be the great city that we used to be, and we won't be the great city that we can be. It's not just about giving me a handout or any of that business. It's about us coming together in this region, looking at our history, looking at our past mistakes, coming together and growing this region together as thought partners, not just participants. So I appreciate having the opportunity. I hope we begin to learn lessons in St. Louis that you need us and we need you to become the great city that we can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Gloria Martin.
Hi, my name is Gloria Martin. I stay 30 Wayside Drive, Ferguson, and I work at Explore St. Louis. I've been employed at Explore St. Louis for over 28 plus years. When I first started working in Explore St. Louis, when we were Savannah's Convention Center at that time, we were a 3-hall venue. I've worked through 2 expansions. Since we have expanded, I have seen our business grow. I have seen economic benefits and job security for me. And I want you all to know at this time, we need this again. In order for us to become competitive in the convention and tourism business, we have to expand. And this expansion will not only benefit us, St. Louis County, and St. Louis City as well. Thank you for allowing me to speak before this council.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Erin Shank.
Hello, my name is Erin Shank. I am a resident at 1104 Drayton Avenue in Webster Groves, Missouri. But I'm here today to speak to you as a wildlife biologist of Missouri Department of Conservation about deer management in St. Louis County parks. I've been a wildlife biologist in the St. Louis region with Department of Conservation for about 16 years now, and I work with homeowners and community members on deer management issues. So nuisance problems, population management, as well as disease surveillance. We have throughout much of St. Louis County overabundant populations. Historically, in this part of North America, we had around 20 deer per square mile or less throughout the habitat of this part of Missouri. Now, in some parts of the St. Louis County area, we have from 40 to 60 to even up to 90 deer per square mile or more. And the St. Louis County park properties can really act as a refuge for deer, which causes problems for the communities that surround those park properties as they are attempting to manage deer on private property, and those park lands are harboring large numbers of deer. I hear from residents regularly around St. Louis County park properties regarding the nuisance issues that they have, property damage, deer vehicle collisions, fear of tick-borne diseases, but I also hear significantly from community leaders, so mayors and council people and aldermen from municipalities that are trying to tackle deer management issues in their communities and are struggling to meet their goals because of the lack of action in county park properties. The reality is that unless you have a large amount of money to spend, To lower deer densities, you must harvest deer. Archery is the most widely used method throughout North America to manage deer in urban areas. While it may seem like an unusual setting in St. Louis County parks to utilize archery, I can tell you from Department of Conservation perspective, it is not unusual. We work with other municipal areas to administer managed archery hunts on properties in Kansas City metro parks, Jackson County metro parks, Springfield metro area through Greene County, and as well as some in St. Louis County, including Rockwoods Reservation, Rockwoods Range, and other properties that we have in Ellisville and Kirkwood, Sunset Hills, and unincorporated St. Louis County. And then finally, I just want to conclude with archery involves the harvest of deer, where those deer are put to good use feeding hunters and their families, or through the donation of that meat through Share the Harvest. And that truly is conservation and a wise use of resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jenny Armbrister.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Jenny Armbrister. I live at 4311 Wickerfield in District 6. I also am the Deputy Executive Director at NCADA. NCADA is a local nonprofit that works to reduce and prevent the harms of alcohol and other drugs. I'm here tonight to address Bill 270. Again, thank you to the Council for the Committee of the Whole hearing last week where we heard information, and I just would like to reiterate my position as a resident, a parent, and a public health professional to stay focused on evidence-based public health approaches when we're looking at issues that impact young people, impact health, and impact the entire community. These include looking at how we can increase enforcement to retailers, increase penalties, and reduce the access of these products to young people. We know that that is an evidence-based strategy that it's used with many other substances. I'd also like to encourage you to explore some other local tobacco control experts that are right here in our community. At Washington University, experts Doug Luke and Todd Combs are nationally recognized, and just in the last month, they've had an article released through Washington University where they, again, look at encouraging municipalities and local governments to address the vaping and e-cigarette crisis through local excise tax or restrictions in advertising and flavored products and other smoking bans. So there are plenty of strategies that have research behind them, and as a public health community and a profession, we just encourage that to be considered when we're looking at any type of ordinance in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker is Amrit Gill.
Good evening. My name is Amrit Gill. I reside at 6218 Waterman, St. Louis, Missouri. I am the president and CEO of Innkeeper Hospitality Services as well as Restoration St. Louis, both certified minority business enterprises, certified by the state of Missouri. We own the Seven Gables Inn and the Old Viking in Sunset Hills. And I wanted to speak on behalf of the expansion of the convention center. I believe it's very important that we be competitive on the national scale when it comes to the convention center. And this is the only way we're going to be competitive. It's very important that certainly you understand that when the convention center has large conventions downtown, it spills over all the way through the county. We see massive compression out in Sunset Hills. We see tremendous demand for our restaurants as well in the county, as well as in the city. And I just want to urge you to vote for the expansion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kristen Shields.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm very excited to be here. So, my name is Kristen Shields, and I live in the Lindbergh School District. To give you a little background about myself, I'm a 4th grade teacher. I became a teacher because I wanted to make a positive difference in children's lives and to teach them how to be the change. I hope I can achieve that with you all tonight. I am here to talk on behalf of Faust, the dog who was rescued by Stray Rescue and later euthanized by County Animal Control. What happened to Faust was a devastating and heartbreaking event, something that should never be repeated. If you're an animal lover, you get it. No questions asked. But for those of you who need a little more convincing, a life is a life, and just because it's an animal does not mean that it's not deserving of a good life. County AC put down Faust because they claimed 2 things. The dog didn't belong to anyone, and the dog displayed signs of having rabies. Both of those things being false. Faust did belong to someone. She had a chip. Her chip gave AC information and gave them the opportunity to find records on her. Not only did Faust have a chip, but she was brought into VSS by Stray Rescue. The community raised $10,000 specifically just for her. There is a video of her nearly frozen to death, lying helplessly on the concrete. She has touched so many people's hearts, and she had a chance to be rescued, to have a new start on life. County AC took that away from her. Faust was at VSS, and when she was waking up from her coma, out of fear and pain, she bit a vet tech. VSS called County Animal Control, and County AC didn't even have Faust for 24 hours before they made the decision to take her life away. County AC is using the excuse that this was protocol, but protocol is actually to quarantine the dog for 10 days under observation. They claimed that they didn't need to follow this because Faust was showing signs of rabies, but in reality, Faust was showing signs of waking up from a coma. Any human being wouldn't be able to walk properly after and during freezing temperatures and waking up from a coma. And for the record, her rabies test came back negative. I have 3 very well-behaved dogs who I love unconditionally, and I would fear for their lives if they ever accidentally ended up there. I shouldn't be afraid of innocent lives ending because of poor leadership. The county AC director made an ill, rash decision, and she needs to deal with the consequences of her poor choices. She took away an innocent life and is covering it up with protocol. Her protocol. Not only did she take away an innocent life, but this event has completely disrupted the community. It has broken the community's heart, and it has robbed us. Something needs to be done about that. It's incredibly disappointing we can't do anything about Faust's death now, but what we can do is make changes from here to be a solution. We have the resources, we have the volunteers, and we certainly have the community support. But what we are lacking is the right leadership. We need a director who has a just voice for animals, someone who fights for them. We need a director who supports life, not one who throws life away like trash. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Judith Schneider. Judith Schneider.
Hi again, I'm Judith Schneider, and I'm here to speak to you this week about the deer. We've heard a lot of speakers speaking about it, and I'd like to make it clear that I have no financial interest in this. I don't belong to an agency that makes money off hunting licenses. Managed hunts don't solve the problem of the deer-human conflict, and in fact, they merely perpetuate it. Hunted populations reproduce faster than non-hunted populations, and in hunted herds, does start reproducing earlier in life. Many of them come into heat, more of them come into heat, and there is a higher incidence of twinning versus single births. We see this in places like Town and Country, where every year they do a managed hunt, and every year the population rebounds. Therefore, the killing and the cost continues indefinitely. Deer struck by arrows don't die instantly. It takes an average of 30 minutes for a deer to die from an ethical shot, which is a shot to the heart and lungs. This is the best case scenario. A shot to the gut or liver can take 4 to 6 agonizing hours for the animal to die. Some animals will suffer for days before dying from infection. Since deers are flight animals, once shot, they typically run. Injured animals are terrified, they're disoriented, and the hunter must follow the blood trail to ensure he kills the animal. Given that county parks are in residential neighborhoods, this could very likely wind up taking place in a family's backyard. Bow hunting has a 50% crippling rate, and it's not effective or humane. In 2011, Margaret Schneider, an 80-year-old St. John woman, was struck through the face by a stray arrow while eating a chocolate donut at her kitchen table. Her neighbor was practicing his archery skills. Arrows can't be controlled once they leave the bow, and we deserve safety and peace of mind in our neighborhoods. Along those lines, deer-car collisions increase during hunting season because it puts the startled animals on the run, as I've said before. With regard to Lyme disease, I know that this was mentioned earlier. Killing deer won't prevent the spread of Lyme disease. 49 bird species and several other wild mammals carry the ticks, which are most infectious to humans. When deer numbers are reduced, ticks congregate at higher densities on the remaining deer or switch to alternate hosts, like humans. And these days, we're hearing a lot about chronic wasting disease. It's important to note that the first case of chronic wasting disease was in Missouri, was on a captive deer farm, not in a wild herd. If we are concerned that too many deer spread disease, our first step should be to stop farming them, not slaughtering them in St. Louis parks. Y'all know me, I'm a solution person, so I'm going to propose a solution to you that I feel is both cost-effective and viable. PZP has been recognized as a safe and effective contraceptive for deer for over 40 years. It gained federal approval in 2017. It doesn't require surgery. The cost is $100 to $500 per deer. It's administered as an injection either by hand or remotely with a dart. It reduces the pregnancy rate from 80 to 90%, resulting in immediate population stabilization and gradual population reduction over time. This is the safer, more effective, and more humane choice than bow hunting, and a far better choice for St. Louis County parks.
Next speaker is Kyle Embry.
Good evening. My name is Officer Kyle Embry. I've been employed with St. Louis County for about 6 years, and I'm currently assigned to our Highway Safety Unit. I'd like to talk a little bit about Prop P. Prop P was a vital initiative that was passed back in 2017. It was intended to provide law enforcement with the manpower and the resources necessary to keep themselves safe and the residents safe. And I truly believe that when the residents voted for it, that's what they believed they were getting. The intention, or what St. Louis County residents would receive with that, police would hire more officers. We would be able to deploy 2-man patrol units. We would be able to increase salaries. We would be able to install body cams and dash cams, which would help transparency with the police department. Additionally, we would be able to expand training and other opportunities for officers to become more efficient in their duties. And lastly, we would develop a computerized crime reporting system. I truly believe, like I said, the county residents voted for these things. Like Ms. Pike said and Captain Webb said, I think we should honor their votes and keep our residents and officers safe by doing so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Joe Patterson. Joe Patterson.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the County Council, it's a privilege to be here. I am Joe Patterson. I'm a detective with the St. Louis County Police Department. I'm also the president of the St. Louis County Police Association.
I have one of the most unpopular positions on the police department, being the president of the police association. It's not a fun job. It's a rewarding job. It's such an unpopular job that I'm not going to be pompous and think that I'm doing such a good job that nobody wants to run against me. I just don't think anyone wants to hold this ball of fire. So I don't want to come here and read off a speech. I just want to speak to you from the heart. I'm a kind of guy that wears my heart on my sleeve, and you kind of know when I'm mad, you know when I'm happy. And right now we're a little upset. We can go in either direction from here. I think you're at a precipice, sort of a bit of a crossroads here. You have a bill up for perfection right now that's going to allow taxpayer money that was raised. Whether or not we can do this legally or not, I'm not going to argue that. I have an associate's degree from St. Louis Community College. It's not my place. This is not a courtroom. And Councilman Trickus is an attorney from a very prestigious school. He may be legally sound in this. Maybe he can do this. What I'm asking each and every one of you to think about is, should you do this? There's a difference between a can and a should, and that's when professionalism comes into play, and that's when our morals and our ethics, that's when those really come into play. If we all went around legally doing everything we could legally do, we wouldn't get by as a society. The voters of this proposition overwhelmingly passed it. 70% in the 6th district where myself and Councilman Trickus are from, 70% in Spanish Lake in North St. Louis County. The poorest of the poor white neighborhoods, the poorest of the poor African-American neighborhoods that really can't afford to pay more taxes, saw the value in having better trained, better equipped, more police officers on the street, and we owe that to them. We owe them the promise to give them body cameras. I don't think the press could search across the country and have a union president of a police union standing up and saying, our guys are ready for our body cameras and dash cameras. If you are a person who's in a wheelchair or has some sort of special needs, you couldn't even visit many of our police stations because they're not ADA compliant. We're not building these stations. Instead, we're thinking about filling potholes and brushing snow. And listen, I love the folks at the highway department, the county counselor's office. They do a tremendous job. I truly do value their service. Some of them are my friends. I spend my free time with them. Many of them were supporters of Proposition P. They never expected to get this money. It's not a correct assumption to assume that these people expected that money. When I stood up in front of the public and did my first ever press conference in support of Proposition P, there was 3 groups of people that were there. Very easily identifiable. It was the police department, it was the prosecuting attorney's office, and it was the Bureau of Justice Services. 3, that's it. Now, I understand the nurses, there's some minutia. They have to work under medical control, so they've got to stay in the health department, but they do spend their day in the jail. We weren't happy with that, but we can live with it. My point is, let's keep this to what the spirit of St. Louis County has wanted. You don't necessarily have to support me. You don't have to support the police, but you better damn well support your constituents. Because I don't think it's good for anybody's political business to go against almost 70% in many neighborhoods of what these folks wanted. So please, be good leaders, do the right thing, and ask yourselves, can I do this? But should you do this? Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Stephanie Monroe Brown.
Good evening, council members. My name is Stephanie Monroe Brown. I reside at 260 Brayshire in Baldwin. I am a native of St. Louis. I am in District 3. Mr. Fitch, thank you. I'm the Director of Specialty Sales at Explore St. Louis. I've been with them for the past 12 years, and I lead a very dedicated team to convince organizations of all types that St. Louis City and County is the best place for their meetings or events. For the larger conventions, the America Center complex is a key factor that is evaluated by our clients. When comparing St. Louis to many destinations, we often have to run the risk of larger convention centers. The legislation before you is essential for St. Louis to remain competitive in today's meeting and convention market. I personally work with religious and multicultural market. 3 of my groups have been reported in the Business Journal as the top conventions. In my competitive set, though, there are several more events that would come to St. Louis possibly if, and only if, the legislation is passed. In the end, the cities who most often secure the businesses are those type who make investments in their convention facilities that help best meet the needs of the group or event. Imagine if a client had 2 bids, one from St. Louis, where they have to create a ballroom experience in a concrete floor hall, or a competitive city that already has a 40,000 plus square foot ballroom with carpet, chandeliers, and the works. Which would you select? Well, St. Louis, because I'm great at selling, but that's another subject. St. Louis needs this legislation to remain competitive, and I hope you will give your support. Our convention center is located in the city, but impacts the entire region. Events held at the America Center bring hundreds of thousands of people each year. These events help to create new businesses, support existing businesses, and create jobs for our residents throughout the city and county. And just so you know, most of my groups love the county because of all the great shopping. Have some great shopping in the county. Thank you in advance for your consideration with the essential project and keeping St. Louis competitive. I appreciate you by voting yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker is Bob Shelton.
Good evening. My name's Bob Shelton. I'm the city administrator for the city of Town and Country. As you've heard this evening from some previous speakers, we do have ongoing deer management issues in Town and Country. I'd just like to acknowledge Councilman Fitch and our support for Bill number 45 for the St. Louis County deer management in the parks, and specifically in our case, Queenie Park. As you've heard from some professionals tonight with the Department of Conservation, we've attempted various measures. The city does continue an annual harvest. We do believe it is making progress. However, we have a random sampling also done by professionals, which continually indicates that the ongoing problem is Queenie Park. So we believe if we can get some support from St. Louis County and the County Council to assist in some harvest controlled under the supervision of the Department of Conservation, that could really provide some impact and assist us with this ongoing deer management problem. So appreciate your support for Bill number 45.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tom Sullivan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm again raising questions about the great $240 million robbery of St. Louis County taxpayers, also known as the proposal to expand the convention center. It's nothing but a scam. Not one convincing argument has been made to support the expansion, at least an argument that makes sense for county taxpayers or that would benefit the St. Louis area. The main argument given for the expansion is that the St. Louis area is missing bigger conventions. It isn't believable. Where's the evidence? Nothing has been provided, and Kitty Ratcliffe certainly can't be believed. There will always be conventions that are too big for St. Louis and most cities. There are only a handful of cities in the country that can handle the largest conventions. One reason is they have a large number of hotel rooms by the convention center, which St. Louis badly lacks. This could be the real reason some conventions don't come back. Senator Kit Bond was once irritated that the Convention and Visitors Commission wasn't even making proposals to get the national political conventions. I would imagine the lack of concentrated hotel rooms was the problem. There's not one shred of evidence that the various convention center expansions have benefited this area. There is no evidence the proposed one will either. Conventions were supposed to bring riches to the city of St. Louis, but after more than 40 years in the convention business, the city is more broke than ever. I assume the sponsor of the convention bill, Councilwoman Irby, will be able to provide credible evidence as to how the expansion will help, preferably from an outside source. I don't believe anyone at the CBC, and for good reason. In 2012, the council approved $1.1 million to the CBC for a marketing effort. They say it would provide a return of $88 on every dollar, nearly $100 million. That was a big lie. 2011, the council gave $250,000 toward a $750,000 party for association executives. The executives were to all be impressed and bring their convention business to St. Louis. Apparently, it didn't work. 2007, the council approved $2 million to the CBC for another initiative. The con artist said this would provide $57 return on each dollar, another $100 million, and another lie. After all these years, all the deceptions, and all the efforts costing millions of tax dollars, the convention people say the problem is a convention center that's too small. Maybe the problem is the management at the CBC. Maybe it's time for a change. They can't even answer questions from citizens. Expanding the convention center could actually cause a loss rather than a gain. It could be just like the loop trolley. It was projected to take in tons of revenue from all the passengers, but it isn't happening. The trolley is now headed for financial problems, despite the $3 million the county council approved for it. An editorial in the Business Journal asked how the situation with the trolley was allowed to get to where it's at. I have the answer: irresponsible public officials who believed inflated projections. Similarly, it would be irresponsible for this county to support a $240 million taxpayer robbery. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Tom.
Next speaker is Kitty Ratcliffe.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, bill sponsor Irby. I rise and speak to you tonight about the convention center. You've heard many others. I'm not going to repeat what they've said to you this evening. And we did ask for 4 speakers not to be here tonight, so I recognize you've been listening to speakers for a long time. There are a few things that I would like to say. First of all, I heard Mr. Marvin Steele. I don't know if he's still here in the audience. Mr. Marvin Steele said, in speaking about another bill that you have before you, that great cities embrace diversity. We are absolutely a believer in that. We work at it every day. We work at it harder than most. And can we do better? We absolutely can. And we will continue to work at it every day. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Pruitt raised a list up in the air, which we had not seen, and said there were 93 people in management, and he wanted to know the diversity. We don't have 93 people in management, so we can't give him what he's asking for. What we do have is 30 people in our senior management team. We provided that to the bill sponsor. I have that document for you tonight. Our Vice President of Human Resources, who you met last week, Nyla Tuxson, she maintains that. She works with our board. We have a strong effort towards that. We look at it with every hiring that we do. It's very important to us. Our building is there for this community. It's there for the people in the community. Our workforce is reflective of that, and we will continue to make an effort to improve that constantly. The other 2 pieces of information I have for you tonight, which I'm going to leave with you, are 2 letters that I was asked to bring for people who were not here to speak. One is someone that you did hear from last week. He spoke, and he asked me to share the letter in writing with you, which I will leave for you. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to read it right now. It's from Mr. Charles Browns with Regency Enterprise, minority-owned business based in St. Louis County that did $1.3 million in business from America Center last year. It is indicative of the type of work that we do in our community to make sure that minority businesses in our community see the benefit of having visitors come from outside. The other is a letter from Mr. Michael McMillan, CEO of the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis. There's one individually addressed to each one of you here. Mr. McMillan is in Jefferson City today, so he could not be here with you this evening, but he asked me to share this with you. He's got direct experience with what we do and how we do it. We work with him every day on many initiatives, and most recently we worked with him on a very big initiative, which was to bring the National Urban League Convention. They had to they had to turn the exhibit hall into a ballroom because we did not have a ballroom big enough. The Stewards with Worldwide Technology and the Nydorfs with Centene paid for the conversion of that exhibit hall into a ballroom so that we could have the National Urban League Convention here, but most conventions don't have that kind of support in our community, and we lose their business. I thank you very much for your consideration. I know you have a lot before you. I apologize for taking so much time. I'm going to leave these documents with you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Michael Burton.
Hey all, Michael Burton here. Good to see you guys. I first want to thank Councilman Clancy for agreeing to have 3 town halls with the residents of Afton. I appreciate that greatly. And I also want to thank Councilman Fitch for meeting with me and having breakfast with me yesterday. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Councilman Ernie Trachis for all of his words of encouragement and showing up to our first town hall. I just first want to keep you up to date on what's going on regarding the Tower T property. As you know, on February 7th, the housing developer just purchased the land before the people were heard. And on top of that, they just started tearing it down. Since then, this past Tuesday, The previous owner of Tower T deleted the Save Tower T page, which I have helped build, and almost all of our contacts have been deleted. This was done without any complaint or warning. Needless to say, I was shocked, and now we have started another page and are putting things back together. Once again, these tactics by the housing developer aren't going to work. We're not going to go anywhere. I want you to know this week I spent a good amount of time with a potential investor. This was our second meeting, and they are still interested. Others are as well. I hope you understand it is difficult to raise money based on a hypothetical. It will greatly help when the rezoning is stopped. I was running today and found this right by Tower T. It's sad to me. It's really sad to me. But I want to get back to the basics. So I'm just going to list off real quick the concerns that we have listed for all of you over this past year. Number 1, excessive water runoff. Number 2, more Hickey traffic. Number 3, overcrowding of Afton schools. Number 4, loss of green space. Number 5, loss of a St. Louis landmark. Number 6, loss of a small family-friendly business. Number 7, loss of wildlife that we have enjoyed so much. Number 8, higher property taxes in a working-class community, some who won't be able to afford it. Number 9, widening of Hickey Road and the 101-year-old railroad trestle, and the reality that residents will be the ones that have to pay for these problems. Number 10, possible loss of a large portion of Afton residents' front lawns. Number 11, loss of an affordable golf and baseball facility for working-class community. Number 12, drivers cutting through side streets, which puts the neighbors' children in danger. Number 13, blasting and shifting foundations which will likely affect and compromise the residents' backyards, the KDS TV tower, Manor Chemical Plant, which has hazmat certified staff on site, the 101-year-old railroad trestle, the industrial plant across the street, the UE electric substation, and like I said, the 1,200-foot TV tower. They literally want to blast the foundation with TNT that will likely affect all of these structures. Just imagine if the KSD tower came down on Manor Chemical Plant. I recently found out it's actually a special flood hazard area. Number 15, ice falling from the TV tower onto houses and cars. Number 16, effects of the noise pollution from the train, which would negatively impact new residents who want to purchase these houses. Number 17, Afton is already more populated than the majority of St. Louis County. Number 18, there are still new houses for sale in St. Louis County, in Afton, and do not forget about the deal that they're looking to do at Resurrection Cemetery. Might not be the same housing developer, but in Afton, right above it, someone is looking to put 300 plus houses there. Number 19, we have many people on our side, including the superintendent of Tower T and the artist of Tower T. If these are all real valid concerns, I am asking you to vote no on the rezoning of the Tower T property. You don't balance the budget on the backs of the constituents. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Final speaker this evening is Yafet El-Amin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. My name is Yafet El-Amin. I am the executive director of MOCAN, St. Louis Minority Contractors Association, in which MOCAN represents minority contractors in St. Louis City as well as St. Louis County. We had the distinct opportunity in working with the council last year with the passage of Bill 350, which received unanimous support by the council. an historic piece of legislation that set in place a diversity program as well as goals for St. Louis County, and following the City of St. Louis's program that has been established since 1989. So roughly 30 years later, we received an opportunity to mirror and partner with the city on diversity and ensuring that our region is moving forward in the right direction. I'm here today to talk more about diversity and to really ask a rhetorical question to the council, and that is, are we really trying to do diversity, or are we trying to be diversity? And it looks as though we have a program that we put on paper to say we want to do. However, putting in place a program without the adequate funding says that we are not diversity. Today, this is about stepping to the table and becoming diversity and allowing for St. Louis County to provide opportunities for all of its businesses to prosper. But to have a program without adequate funding of its staff is to liken it to having laws without law enforcement. There is no way that we can have a successful program and believe that people will follow the rules without enforcement. As many people have spoken earlier of the efforts of the council to hire Mr. Jack Thomas, who was in St. Louis City for several years and led the city to record diversity and inclusion participation for many businesses. To have him here without the adequate funding for his staff is like a tiger without teeth. I'm asking today for the county executive, who unfortunately is not here, as well as the council, to reach some resolution. The disparity study identified a disparity. So legally, you have to correct it. The disparity was identified. The disparity can only be fixed with having a robust program that will ensure that contractors who work with the county are right in including these businesses. The last thing that we want to do, thank you, and I'm wrapping up. The last thing that we want to do is to be on the other side facing the county in court, asking for the courts to come in and rectify this matter. You legally have a disparity. You legally have to fix it, which means you legally have to fund the department and give it what it needs to have in order to remedy the disparity. We're asking for the county council and the county executive to work together to ensure that this department is fully funded so that we can help our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more speakers, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Introduction of bills.
We have no bills for introduction this evening, Mr. Chair.
Perfection.
Bill number 270, introduced by Councilmember Wassinger for Councilmember Tracus.
Yes, as has been mentioned tonight, we had a hearing last week, heard from stakeholders and others, and I'm having drafted, and it's in the works right now, a substitute bill for this based on the feedback and input we received last week from the many people who spoke before the council. So I'm going to hold this bill going forward, and then have the substitute bill, I hope, ready next week, and perhaps we'll have more dialogue about that. So I move to hold.
Bill 270 is held.
Bill number 17, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
Please hold in the order of business.
So ordered.
Bill number 20, introduced by Councilmember Harder.
Please hold.
So ordered.
Bill number 21, introduced by Councilmember Harder.
Please hold.
So ordered.
Bill number 35, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to hold. Bill number 35 and 35 will be held.
Bill number 34, introduced by Councilmembers Harder and Page.
I'd like to move.
I'm sorry, 54. Excuse me.
I'd like to move to perfect Bill number 54.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Bill number 54 is perfected.
Bill number 55, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
I move to perfect Bill number 55.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 55 is perfected.
Bill number 62, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 62.
Second.
We had another hearing on this today. Does anyone have any remarks to make? This is the subject we've been talking about for a long time. Okay.
Hold on, I do think something needs to be said. I appreciate Chief Belmar's comments today, as well as Mr. Roach's and Ms. Medford-Miller's. It sounds as though they are making progress in communicating, and that's an encouraging fact. As they've mentioned, they're going to be back here in just a few months asking for another annual appropriation. And as I said in the hearing, I think it's incumbent on this body to make sure that we continue to see progress toward a solution for security on Metro, particularly on Metrolink. So I just want that on record, because this is not a small sum of money. The issues facing the county from a budgetary standpoint are open and obvious. So as we go forward with this, I just want it to be clear, at least from my perspective, that this oversight needs to continue. The various players involved need to continue to work with each other and communicate so that we can solve this security issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Harder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to piggyback on what Councilman Tracus said, and want to add now that we have a scorecard based on the survey that was done on security, this is going to be, we are going to check on this scorecard every time we meet with Metro or bi-state, because this is something that's so important, and we need to see progress, and we need to see progress very fast. And this money will help, but besides the money, we have to have a will. And the will has to be to clean this situation up and make this the safest train system in the country. So we will hold everybody accountable to this money going forward for the next years to come. Thank you.
And I wanted to clarify that, I agree with Councilman Triggus that we do have some budget challenges, but this is money that has already been collected by the state of Missouri through a sales tax. So I wanted to note that.
Yeah, it's segregated for by state. Yes, Councilman Fitch.
I went out and did a ride-along on Friday afternoon for several hours with a couple of the St. Louis County police officers assigned to the Bureau of Transit Police. I wanted to see it for myself, how it was working compared to 5 years ago, which was the last time that I looked into the security matters. I was encouraged, a lot of what I saw and what I've heard. I still think there's some significant work that they need to do, Metro, with their contract security. That's an ongoing issue that needs to be corrected. The other thing that you may have read on the agenda tonight is an idea that came forward from the two officers that I rode with, where it would be very beneficial for the officers riding on the train to be able to issue summonses in the St. Louis County Municipal Court System for violations on the train anywhere in St. Louis County. As it stands today, the way it works is depending where the train is riding through and the violation occurs, those officers have to figure out what jurisdiction they're in. And if it's a criminal offense, like a misdemeanor, let's say it's a possession of drugs, some sort of misdemeanor amount of drugs, they have to then go make a warrant application to that municipal prosecutor in that city. And this has been an issue for a long time. I've asked Mr. Crane's office to look into how we can solve this legally to where the officers would not be burdened, because that takes them off the train. It takes them off the train to do that. So hopefully they'll be able to come up with a solution, and I can bring that forward for everyone here to consider.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor of perfection of bill number 62?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 62 is perfected.
Bill number 63, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect bill number 63.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 63 is perfected.
Bill number 64, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect bill number 64.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 64 is perfected.
Bill number 65, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 65.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 65 is perfected.
Bill number 66, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 66. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 66 is perfected.
Bill number 67, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 67.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 67 is perfected.
Bill number 68, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 68.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 68 is perfected.
Bill number 69, introduced by Councilmembers Page, Walton, Gray, Tracus, and Harder.
Move to perfect Bill number 69.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 69 is perfected.
Bill number 70, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 70.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 70 is perfected.
I apologize for that, Mr. Chair. It was Bill number 70, introduced by Councilmember Page. Bill number 71, introduced by Councilmember Clancy.
I move to perfect Bill number 71.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 71 is perfected.
Bill number 72, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
Please hold on the order of business.
Bill number 72 will be held.
Bill number 73, introduced by Councilmember Page for Councilmember Erby.
I am going to go ahead and move for perfection of Bill number 73. However, I know that there were some questions that were asked. Is Kitty still here? Oh, Kitty, and I meant to ask you this when you were here. The letters that you received about the sunshine request, will you respond to that?
Yes.
Before next week, before I have to move it forward? Is that okay?
Yes, well, we responded to the first one.
Did you?
With the applicable documents that we had, but as I said earlier, the 93 management, that's not anyway, we responded with ones we have. We got a second sunshine request today, so that will start in process as well. But,
okay.
There are a lot of records that are being requested that simply don't exist.
Okay, I'm going to move it forward, but then I will get with you before next week. Okay, all right. With that, I move for perfection of Bill number 73.
Second. All in favor of perfection of Bill number 73?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Bill number 73 is perfected.
I did have a
Yes.
inquiry. When Mr. Pruitt was speaking, he spoke about the bill that passed, the minority contract bill, being included with some of that language, I guess is what he was saying. Is that going to be addressed?
I thought we heard previously that minority participation rules of St. Louis City would apply, but we should probably get some clarification on that since it's being built in St. Louis City.
We do, and that's what I wanted to deal with too before we finally pass it. And so I don't know, Peter,
Yes, ma'am.
can you get us some clarification on whether this bill, our Bill 350, includes?
We can do it, yes.
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 Okay. Thank you.
You want to know if our minority participation ordinance controls the use of the money funded?
Right.
Yes.
Or if St. Louis City will apply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's part of the reason for my no vote. As well as other financial reasons. But
Bill number 74, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move to perfect Bill number 74.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 74 is perfected.
Bill number 70.
Excuse me just a second.
And I want to go back to 73 again. Also, Mr. Sullivan brought up the question about the unused portions of the bond being used for general revenue.
I don't remember what he may have mentioned.
I have a letter I can share with you.
Absolutely, yes.
Because I would like to get an opinion on that as well.
Fine, thank you very much.
Bill number 75, introduced by Councilmember Tracus.
move to perfect Bill 75, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 75 is perfected.
Bill number 76, introduced by Councilmember Tracus.
Now that I have your attention, I'm going to tell you that Bill 76 has already succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. Before I explain that, I want to thank Captain Webb, Ms. Pike, Officer Embry, and Joe Patterson for coming tonight. That is part and parcel of the purpose that I introduced this bill, was to reignite and finalize a discussion and a reasoned debate and dialogue about just exactly what Prop P funds, to use Joe's term, should be used for. So this bill is not going to be perfected tonight. I'm going to request, Mr. Chair, that we have a committee of the whole, allow all stakeholders, voters to come and choose to, and let this council know exactly the extent to which Prop P funds will be available going forward to other entities besides the police department, or not. But I think we need to put the debate to bed once and for all. That's why I introduced this bill, was to start that conversation. I told you that 2 weeks ago, Mr. Chairman. So we've obviously already started that conversation. I expect it to continue. I look forward to hearing from constituents and voters all over the county with respect to how they want us to focus on and use Prop P funds. So with that, Mr. Chair, I move to hold Bill number 76.
Bill number 76 will be held. Final passage.
Bill number 28, introduced by Councilmember Page.
I'll move to hold Bill number 28. I do think we have consensus of support on the part of this bill which pertains to deputized county police officers, and I've asked for a substitute that I can share with council members and continue to the discussion. So Bill 28 will be held.
Bill number 45, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
I'd like to take that up, and for the folks that are still here, this is the hunting in a county park to allow that. I've talked with most of the council members about this by now. I think that we have a very simple solution that will move this forward, so next week I will be prepared to have a substitute bill. So thank you for those that came in and spoke. I appreciate that, and we're going to still move forward just with a little tweak in what I've already proposed. So thank you.
So is your motion to
hold? To hold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill number 45 will be held.
Bill number 48, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage, Bill number 48.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on Bill number 48, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 48 is finally passed.
Bill number 49, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of Bill number 49.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on Bill number 49, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 49 is finally passed.
Bill number 50, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of Bill number 50.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on Bill number 50, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 50 is finally passed.
Bill number 51, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of Bill number 51.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on Bill number 51, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 51 is finally passed.
Bill number 52, introduced by Councilmember Tracus.
Move for final passage of Bill number 52, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on Bill number 52, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 52 is finally passed.
Bill number 53, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for a final passage of Bill number 53.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 53, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 53 is finally passed.
Bill number 56, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
I move for final passage of bill number 56.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 56, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 56 is finally passed.
Bill number 57, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of bill number 57.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 57, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 57 is finally passed.
Bill number 58, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
Second.
I move for final passage of bill number 59.
Second.
I'm sorry,
I'm
58.
sorry, that's it.
58.
58.
Yeah.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby? Aye. Councilmember Page?
I'll abstain.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 58, there are 6 ayes and 1 abstaining.
Bill number 58 is finally passed.
Bill number 59, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of bill number 59.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 59, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 59 is finally passed.
Bill number 60, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of bill number 60.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 60, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 60 is finally passed.
Bill number 61, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for final passage of bill number 61.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on bill number 61, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 61 is finally passed, and I will note, if there's anyone here from the county executive staff, that if this bill is signed by Friday, it will go into effect, and it will negate the need for the emergency contract to cover these services. If it's not signed before then we will need the contract for emergency services to fill the gap. Resolutions.
We have 3 resolutions this evening, Mr. Chair. Resolution number 1, introduced by Councilmember Fitch.
I move for adoption of resolution number 1.
Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on resolution number 1, there are 7 ayes.
Resolution number 1 is adopted.
Resolution number 2, introduced by Councilmember Page.
Move for adoption of resolution number 2.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on resolution number 2, there are 7 ayes.
Resolution number 2 is adopted.
Resolution number 3, introduced by Councilmember Walton Gray.
I move for the adoption of resolution number 3.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Erby?
Hold it.
One moment.
I'd like to be added. No, would you add my name?
She wants to be a co-sponsor.
Resolution number 3, introduced by Councilmembers Walton Gray and Erby.
Second. I second.
Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Say aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on resolution number 3, there are 7 ayes.
Sorry.
Resolution number 3 is adopted.
Moving on to unfinished business, item number 1.
Please hold on the order of business, same motion through item number 3, and that will be the order.
Item number 4, 3rd District.
Please hold on the order of business.
So ordered.
Item number 5, 7th District.
Yep.
Take the appointment to be approved as requested.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Appointments approved. New business.
And under new business this evening, Mr. Chair, we have two prepared orders.
I move for adoption of order number 1 and order number 2.
Second. All in favor of adoption orders 1 and 2? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Orders 1 and 2 are adopted. Comments by council members?
Just one for me. I would like to say thank you to Councilman Tracus for holding his Prop P bill this evening. Would have liked to have the conversation before tonight, but obviously we didn't get that far. At any rate, I'm looking forward to a robust discussion there. I would have rather done it a different way than getting so many people upset and worked up about this, which is what clearly happened, and maybe that was by design, I don't know. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that you decided to talk about it and see what everybody else thought.
That was the plan from Jump Street. So the fact that people got excited is a good thing, not a bad thing to me. I want them engaged. I want to hear from them. I encourage voters all over the county to contact your councilman and let them know what your belief is with respect to how these monies should, to use Detective Patterson's term, be allocated.
Yeah, I would like to say I'm a little surprised just by the fact that this is not the first time that we've had other county employees want to be considered under Prop P, like you said, and it hasn't been clear. And then today is the first day we've had opposition to that. So I was a little surprised.
I anticipated the opposition, but I also think we need to put some finality on this question and this issue. And we can do that with reasoned dialogue and debate. And let's hear from the residents what their will is, for lack of a better way to put it. And once we do that, then I think we can move forward in good faith and once for all, not have to constantly try to divine whether or not someone is public safety, whether or not someone is under the umbrella of the police department. We'll know, and we can move forward from there.
Okay, I would just like to ask if there's any hearings that council members would like to request for next week. Please let me know by tomorrow so we can get those mapped in.
I don't know when the timing is quite right, but I would like to hear from Justice Services about the recent deaths in the Justice Center. And the only reason I question when the timing is right, because I know that they're doing some investigations right now, and I think it would probably behoove us to wait a little bit until they can share as much information as possible with us about that, because I am concerned about the 3 deaths they've had in a short period of time relative to their track record for the past few years. So I think we need to have a conversation about that.
We talked about that, and we thought we'd wait until the investigation is done, and then we have have everybody in and do it. Is it justice? What is it?
Justice and Health.
Justice and Health.
Yes. Okay. Great. And we had, there were quite a few public comments tonight about the diversity office, and I hope we can find a resolution to this, because I think the work that they are doing, that Jack and his team are doing, is really important when it comes to furthering equity here in our whole region. So I hope we can continue the conversation and make that happen.
I agree.
Well, the problem with the diversity office is one that we're going to have to help solve, and I hope we can find some middle ground. The challenge is that in a $10 million budget, we can't find the funds to hire 2 people, but the decision's been made to leave 5 positions open. And it's a matter of priorities. We have provided adequate funding. The decision's been made not to spend the money on these 2 positions, but hopefully we can have a conversation and get this worked out, because this is an office that needs to be running.
I'd like to say something regarding Ernie's bill and explaining, finding a definition for public safety. I was listening to the young lady who spoke and said that we should spend the money for what it was intended for, but she had thanked us for giving them the 7% raise after the fact. if we hadn't, you know, looked into the definition of public safety and given her the raise, we wouldn't, in other words, if we had stayed, right, you know what I'm saying, right, without looking into it, we wouldn't have given her the raise if we stuck to what they said, because in the definition, it seemed like they left out an awful lot of people who are clearly under public safety. So I think that's the thing that we need to, and I thank you, Ernie, for that we need to talk about and define what public safety really is. Because a lot of people were left out, and it wasn't our fault that it happened that way. We didn't determine who was going to be listed as public safety, so.
During the drafting of that ordinance before it got to the council, the original position was that it would be a 0.25% sales tax. And when it went to a 0.5-cent sales tax during the drafting stage, law enforcement was changed to law enforcement and public safety. And that's what Proposition P says. It says law enforcement and public safety. So we have to have a conversation of what public safety is, but I think we all understand that we take care of law enforcement first. And that if there are other funds to pay for some of the expenses that we have, we'll try and use those other funds before we look to Prop P. But I do think that Councilman Tracus has raised an issue that needs to be developed, and I'm certainly encouraged that the dialogue tonight was constructive, and I think that'll lead us to the right solution.
Motion to adjourn?
Before we adjourn, Mr. Chair, if I could just ask if we could return briefly, because I need an explanation from Mr. Crane, perhaps. Bill number 75 on the perfection calendar. I've been asked to try and expedite that, but I understand it needs to be on the calendar for at least 14 days. Is that correct, Peter?
That's correct. All bills have to.
So this bill was introduced last week. Therefore, even if we could suspend, if we did decide to suspend the rules, we could not finally pass it tonight, correct?
Right. Well, the charter requires it to be on the agenda for 2 weeks.
Right.
And so, yes, you couldn't suspend your rules. You could to perfect it, but not to finally pass it.
We did perfect it.
Right.
But my question is, we can't, if I understand correctly, suspend the rules and with unanimous vote, finally pass it.
There is a provision to finally pass the bill in 7 days. It's unanimous vote, but I think we probably need to look at that.
Consent of all members. So you can do it with the consent of all members.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you will, I would like to move to suspend the rules so that we can consider Bill 75 for final passage. And the reason that I'm doing that is the constituent here is under a contract for a land purchase that is going to expire. We'll have to go through the machinations of extending that contract if it doesn't get finally passed tonight and then signed ultimately by the county executive. So that's my interest in doing that. I wouldn't do it otherwise.
Okay, second. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would say that the motion would be to suspend the rules would be to return to the final passage order of business to take this up for final passage.
Well, it's not on final passage. It was on for perfection, and
So
we
you
did
want to move
perfect
to
it.
final
Right,
passage?
But you were going back to final passage because you're going
Okay.
to take it up on final passage.
That's fine then. So I so move.
Second. So the motion, this is Bill 75?
Correct.
Motion is to move Bill 75 to final passage so it can be considered tonight. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And then you would need all 7 to vote on it.
Okay.
So with that, I'd move for final passage of bill number 75, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Does everybody understand what 75 is? You want to summarize what?
Yeah, this is essentially a bill that's asking for a change of zoning to develop a piece of property in District 6. There's no opposition to it. The change of zoning is recommended by both the Planning Department and the Zoning Commission. There's really no controversy with respect to this bill, only that their contracting arrangements need it passed sooner than later. So that's the reason I'm trying to accommodate the developer, Haley Properties LLC.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Councilman Harder, did you second his motion? I'll second.
Yeah, that's second.
Okay. Roll call.
Aye.
Final passage.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Erby?
Aye.
Councilmember Page?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gray?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy?
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, on Bill number 75, there are 7 ayes.
Bill number 75 is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, colleagues. I appreciate your patience tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.
What about closed session?